Today I'm extremely excited to bring you a very special video from one of my favorite PokerCoaching.com coaches and recent World Series of Poker bracelet winner, Justin JustGTO Saliba. In this video, he covers a topic that I am frequently asked about, which is how do I improve quickly and move up in stakes? Well, when I first started working with Justin just a few years ago, he was grinding 25 NL online, 10 cent, 25 cent, no limit hold'em cash games. But over the course of the last few years, he has worked really hard. He's dedicated his life to poker, and now he's playing the biggest cash games and tournaments in the world. He's also going to be discussing various mindset tips that he uses to make sure he stays motivated and actively improving consistently. This class was part of last year's 30-day challenge at PokerCoaching.com that was geared towards cash games. But this year, I'm running a brand new challenge focused towards tournaments. If you want to use this New Year time to improve your poker skills, you can get completely free access to the first 7 days of this challenge right now at PokerCoaching.com/challenge. Go ahead, check it out. Access is very limited, so make sure you get in right now. Hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you in the challenge.
Hey everybody, this is JustGTO for PokerCoaching.com, coming to you with day 30 in the Cash Game Challenge. I just wanted to first say congratulations for making it to day 30. I think it's been really awesome to see all the students, or a large amount of students, getting in there, studying every single day, improving their cash game skills, taking the quizzes, hopping in the Discord, asking questions, and just being really eager to learn. So congratulations on that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned a lot, and I hope that it helps you build really good habits moving forward. So for day 30, I wanted to cover how to improve quickly and move up stakes. I think that this is something that no matter how good you get at the game, whether you're the best player in the world or a beginner, it's something that everybody has a big desire for, right? Everybody wants to improve as quickly as possible and have success in whatever they're spending their time on. So hopefully I can bring you some value today, give you a few tips that I think will help expedite your process in your career, in the game. So first I want to talk about short-term results. In my mind, too many players, especially inexperienced players, they go and study and then they use their short-term results as a metric of how good they are. And I think it's a really, really big error. And I want to encourage you to make sure that you understand that if you go and study for 20 hours or you finish the 30-day challenge and you go play a 6-hour session and it goes really well, it is extremely detrimental for you to say, wow, I became really good at poker. I'm crushing the game now. Because from that point on, you're just going to stagnate, right? You're going to be too complacent. You're going to not study and work as hard as you should. So I just want to encourage you not to use short-term results. And it works in both ways. You can study for 20 hours, and then if things go poorly in one 6-hour session, it's not indicative at all about where your skill level is. It's too small of a sample. It's not enough data. But so many people study hard for a week, study hard for a month, go play a session, things don't go well, and they say, this just isn't for me. Studying isn't for me. I just need to focus on my game and how I play, right? And that's a very detrimental mindset to improving quickly. So make sure that you stay focused, and if you want to be successful in poker, you focus on constantly improving, no matter if things are going well or going poorly. So I wanted to share this quote from James Clear that I think is pretty applicable. James Clear is the author of Atomic Habits or Building Atomic Habits, something like that, which is a really great book. He says, "It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis." And I think that this is just so applicable to the game of poker because many people have the wrong mindset and don't understand where EV comes from, right? If you get an aces versus kings pre-flop, there's no EV there, right? Because you're going to get it the same amount when you have kings and when you have aces. And so you can't let your plus minus in a session fuel your outlook, right? Your EV comes from the small edges you have in different parts of the game tree, right? Like you're going to play button 3-bet strategy versus the low jack better than your opponents. You're going to defend the big blind properly where other players defend it too wide. You're going to open from the low jack, the button's going to call, the board comes king 3 deuce, and you have a better strategy on the flop than your opponent when the seats would be switched. That's where EV comes from. And so when you kind of devalue your plus minus in a session and you stop worrying about, if you're up 2 buy-ins or down 2 buy-ins or whatever it is from a financial sense, and you only focus on printing your edge and making small improvements on a daily basis, you're going to just increase the amount of EV difference that you're able to generate in spots compared to that of your opponents. So with that in mind, I want to talk about when you should apply that mindset to your current schedule. And in my mind, just to kind of reiterate on the studying, I think it's a bad idea to binge 20 hours, go play for a week, be like, oh crap, I haven't studied in a while, go study for 10 hours, and then go play for another week. It's much more important to have a constant desire to improve and spend high value time. I put on here every week, but really it's every day. Every time you play, you should spend high value time to improve after that session. So where I think this should fit into your schedule is in your post game. So I think you should spend a little bit of time reflecting on your current post game habits. In my mind, most people I know let their plus minus fuel their emotional state. So it's like if they win, they're happy. If they lose, they're sad. And then either way, their post game typically ends up like, taking a shower and going to bed, or grabbing dinner, grabbing a beer and going to bed. And I think it's a pretty big mistake, because right when you finish the session, that's when things are freshest on your mind. And so I would really encourage you to spend that time like being really useful. And I think I might even, it's more even on this slide. Like, you should have every single post game, you should be getting rid of all the wasted thoughts and energy, like whatever you're feeling from the session, right? If you're upset about a hand you played, you need to kind of reflect and be like, okay, well, why am I upset about that? You're just wasting your time and energy caring about things that don't matter, when you could reset your mind and kind of focus on, like, get your mind back on the strategy. Every single session, whether it's a good session or bad session, you should spend 10 to 15 minutes focusing on the strategy and how you want to improve, how you want to play spots differently the next session. So I have that you should run or share marked hands. If you're using solvers, you should just run, the 3 hands that were the biggest questions. Something I really liked from Brad Wilson's webinar, he talked about the entry points, right? So this for me is like, I totally agree with it. It's like, once you finish a session, if you find a couple spots that were tricky or you didn't know what to do, you have to review it, right? You can't just imagine if every single time you have 2 players, one of them, every single time a tricky spot comes up where they don't know what to do, they just kind of like, become nonchalant about it, don't care, don't review it, and then move on. And compare that with somebody who every single time that happens, they run the spot in a solver, or they share it with their coach or share it with their friends and improve their strategy on that spot. Obviously, the second person is just going to improve so much faster than the first. So one thing I think it's also good to like articulate or write down your strategy. Have a very clear understanding of the way that you want to play your spots, and focus your mindset on playing your best and improving between every session. Once again, it's all about converting your natural mindset of being happy or sad from how the session went to being happy or sad on how you played, right? Understanding that I'm upset because I didn't play my best. Okay, well, next step, I didn't play my best because X, Y, and Z, right? And then improve right away. People tilt in different ways. The way that I tend to tilt is after a session, I end up all of a sudden having a DoorDash with, a bunch of junk food, and like 20 minutes later, I'm like, what the heck am I doing, right? I'm upset. And so this was a couple years ago, and it fueled me to make sure after every single session, I do something where I get back on the strategy, going over marked hands, running the hands, etc. And if you make that a habit, you can just imagine the difference it's going to make in your game if you study and you're sharp for 20 minutes after every session. What that's going to do for you after a year, what that's going to do for you after 2 years. It's just really going to add up, and you're going to be drastically ahead of ahead of the other people who, after their sessions, they grab a beer and chill out. So would really encourage you to make the most of your time. The next thing I want to talk about is to take great notes and develop a really strong understanding of your own game. This is a quote I like from Josh Watson. He's kind of like I don't know what he would be considered now. He was like a world champion chess player and then became like a world champion Tai Chi or something like that. But he wrote the book, The Art of Learning. He's kind of like a guru on how to learn quickly and efficiently. And he says that I've long believed that if a student of virtually any discipline could avoid ever repeating the same mistake twice, both technical and psychological, he or she would skyrocket to the top of their field. And obviously, it's impossible, right? Like, we're all going to make the same mistakes twice. But one thing that I really like about this and that I think can help your poker game is that if you take great notes and you have a really good understanding of your own game, you understand where your holes are. I can't tell, I don't know how many it's been, but I've had so many students or friends where I've been like, what spots have been tricky for you? Like, where do you think you need to study? And they just have no idea. Right? And it just means that they don't have a strong understanding of their own game, of their own strategy. For example, I've been working on out of position spots because I made a bet sizing error on, one of those like low jack opens, button calls, king 3 deuce or something. And I bet small. And like small bets just don't make any sense. And it was like a very clear entry point into my own game where if I was making that mistake, it means I don't understand that spot well, right? And so right away, I can now dedicate time to make that a priority and study out of position flop strategy for a significant amount of time. So I think that when you take, and then in addition to that, when you go through and do the study, you have to take really, really, really strong notes. Fill notebooks with notes, get Excel sheets, get Google Docs, etc. The game is so complex that if you don't have good notes, you're going to forget what you learned in 6 months. And if you take 2 weeks off, you're going to be behind, right? So if you take really good notes and things are organized and are at a really high level, you're going to be able to review your own strategy, like reference it if you have any questions about it, and then use it to understand holes, right? And leaks in your game, holes in your strategy. So although it's not like, fully achievable to avoid ever repeating the same mistake twice, having that as like an aim or, a goal, I think is really good. It's going to hold yourself to a really high standard, and it'll hold yourself accountable in these spots, which is only going to like expedite your learning process. So one of the last things I want to talk about is ego, really. It's a quote from Jonathan that I really liked. He said, if you want to get very good at something, find someone better than you and learn everything you can from them. And it's pretty simple, but it's just so true. I think about my own career and life, and it's like everything I want to achieve in the game, somebody else has already achieved it. And so getting rid of your ego and just doing your best to learn everything you can from them is just going to be so beneficial. Yeah, I think that I put your goal is only to improve. Who cares if you were right? And it's just so true. It's like so many people care if they played a hand correctly, or they hold their tongue because they don't want to ask a stupid question or be wrong about a spot. They play a bad hand and they don't even review it because they're like, oh, it's a bad hand. They don't want to revisit the pain that it caused them, right? And so you need to get rid of your ego because it just doesn't matter if you are right or wrong. The only thing that matters is that you can improve. And so I put, provide value, ask questions. One thing I love about poker coaching is how accessible all the coaches are. A lot of the guys and girls, doing live webinars, interacting in Discord, very accessible to questions. So I definitely encourage you to keep this in mind. Get rid of your ego. Don't feel the need to be right or sound smart or any of those things. Just focus on learning from those that have achieved what you want to achieve, learning everything you can from those people, and using it to improve your game as fast as possible. All right, so when we talk about moving up stakes, the first thing is that your goal is to beat the game, not a specific game. What I mean by that is, I'm sure there are many people out there who are playing like 10-0 or live 1-2, and you could focus a lot of time on different population tendencies, different crazy exploits to use to maximize your win rate in that specific game. But if your goal is to move up stakes, I don't think that's the correct way to approach it. I think that you should be increasing your foundational knowledge, your theoretical knowledge, such that once you beat 10-0 and you move up, you're able to build it. You're able to, you lay the foundational groundwork while you study and you improve. And then when you move up stakes, all you're doing is building on top of what you've already learned, versus when you try to beat a specific game and you're just focused on these exploits that aren't going to be applicable. Now let me actually say a quick caveat in the fact that these are for people whose goal is to move up. This is not, if your goal is to have the highest win rate in your local 1-2 game, and that's what you want to do, then by all means, focus on beating that exact game. Focus on, after your foundation, having these wild exploits and maximally exploiting players, leading in weird spots, etc. So I mostly mean that for the people who are trying to move up in stakes, I think it's really important to focus on beating the game of poker, building a foundation that you're going to be able to build on over and over as you move up. Just kind of laying the groundwork for the future of your strategy. So the next thing is to get good, really good data and be professional with your finances. When things aren't going well in poker, it's really easy to be nonchalant about tracking your finances and tracking your data. And I would encourage you that if your goal is to improve quickly and move up stakes, that no matter if things are going poorly or going great, you need to be very professional about tracking your finances and tracking your stats, especially in live poker. It's just so easy to not track how many hours you played one day after a bad session and then estimate how much you lost, or winning a casino prize like the $500 hot hand or something, whatever it's called, and just saying that you ended the day plus 600, right? You need to be really professional and track. The better data you have, the more educated decisions you can make in terms of moving up stakes. So I would take it very professionally. Either track it on an app on your phone, have an Excel file at home. Always track your hourly win rate, your big blind per hour or per 100 if you're playing online. And just be really, really sharp with that, because the better data you have, the more comfortable you can be moving up. If you know that after 300,000 hands, you're beating 25 NL at 4.5 BB per 100, and you move up to 50 BB, well, you have a money tree just sitting there, right? You know that at any point you could move back down and play 25 NL and grind out a win rate. But if you don't have clear data on that, it's going to be much harder for you to keep your confidence up if things don't go well when you move up. It's going to be much more difficult to understand what games you should be playing. An example from my life would be if there is a tough 10-20 game or a really good 5-10 game. Well, you're kind of just guessing which one's better. But if you played in 200 hours of each, it's not a huge sample, but you're going to have a pretty good idea that the variance involved in the 10-20 game is probably not going to be worth it. It's probably just going to be better to have your higher edge at the 5-10 game instead of moving up and playing that 10-20 game. So I have here to understand and set what your goals are. I think that just being realistic about it, a lot of the people who are going to be studying this are going to have other sources of income. And so if you have other sources of income, your risk of ruin can be a little bit higher than somebody who is paying their bills from poker, right? So understand that if your goal is to maximize your hourly rate, absolutely maximize it, you're going to be taking on likely taking on more variance than somebody else who wants to play a little bit lower stake, have a slightly lower hourly, but has the ability to not deal with the same swings, right? So understand set what your goals are. Realize that at this point in my life, I'm happy dealing with swings. I'm happy dealing with all the variance involved. My goal is to maximize my win rate. And so I'm going to be playing in a little bit higher risk of ruin games than somebody else who has a family and can't at this point in their life deal with the possibility of risk of ruin being 7% or something, right? They need to keep it more at like 2%. So they should be playing a lower stake or building a larger bankroll before they move up. So I think it's important to like constantly be thinking about what your goals are. And there's a site called pokerdope.com. It can show you like the variance involved, risk of ruin, depending on your win rate, etc. So it's another reason why keeping track of your stats and finances are important. You can plug it into these variance calculators, and it'll tell you, all of the projections for what you're going to see if you, let's say you have a 4 BB win rate and you move up and you're like, okay, I'm estimating I'm going to have a 2.5 BB win rate. It can show you kind of all the swings and data that will come along with that. All right, and then the last thing, never let your ego make decisions for you. And what I mean by that is that when you move up stakes, like when I first played 510, it was probably three or 4 years ago or something. And I remember sitting there and like kind of being on a high. It's like the first time you play time rake, it's the first time you're playing with a couple players you thought were pretty good and you want to battle with. And all of a sudden you play 10 hours of the game and you're like, wow, I'm a 510 player. And you start like, getting your ego involved, and it's just never gonna. There's nothing helpful that comes from that. It's only going to be hurtful for you, and so I just like really, really recommend to never let your ego make decisions. If you take your shot and you play 510 and you lose a bunch of buy-ins, first off, you should have your good habits where after every session you're reviewing your hands. You're finding the leaks in your game and you're constantly improving. You're able to articulate your strategy and write down the improvements you're making. But more so, if you don't have an ego, you'll be able to easily move back to 2.5 with having no like bad feelings about it. There's way too many people that think to themselves, I'm a 510 player now, I'm a 1020 player now, and then they go play, like they lose some, they need to move back down, and they feel horrible about it. They think that everybody that they know thinks that they're not confident enough to play the game, or they're not good enough to play the game, or all of these things like running in the back of your mind. And so if you get rid of the ego, you just realize, okay, I'm moving down to 2.5 because it's a better decision for me, right? I'm going to print my edge better here, build up my bankroll before I take a shot again. And while everybody else is worried about being a 510 player, being a 2.5 player, all these things that don't matter, I'm focused on playing the best I can in the game that I should be playing and improving after every single session, such that I'm going to end up beating the higher stake than what I just moved down from, right? So like getting rid of your ego in terms of moving up stakes is super important, because all of the sudden, if you're losing after a shot take and you have like too high of a risk of ruin, it's just going to make you play worse, right? Like if your ego is too big that you can't move down stakes, you shouldn't move up in the first place, because if things go badly, they're going to go really, really badly for you, because you're going to move back down and play worse because you think that you're playing with a bunch of bad players. And so I just really recommend, make sure you get rid of your ego. Understand that moving up stakes is not about it's not about pride, it's not about anything else. It's like you just set your goals, realize that when you move up stakes, it's very likely your win rate goes down, variance goes up. Improving every day is going to help you move up stakes faster, all of those things, right? But none of it's about pride, none of it's about your ego, none of it's about proving to other people you can play at a certain level or anything like that. So yeah, that's all I have. That's all I have for this presentation. I hope that there's some information in here that you can use to expedite your process, your improvement. And once again, please let me know if you guys have any questions. If I can help in any way, I'll be in the Discord, be in the comments, etc. So thanks for taking the 30-day challenge. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a ton, and good luck on your final exam. Thanks. Bye.
Hello there. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You want me to let you in on one little secret to take your poker skills to the next level? All you have to do is click the subscribe button right here. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.